All right, I want to talk about some helper code. Many times we have situations where we need to kind of track our code, find out where some errors are. We have errors that happen. We have to find out what happened to our code to try to figure out the issue and fix it. It's very, very common. Other times we want to create maybe mini programs or pieces of code that we use to help us write our main code. Maybe we need to create a list of numbers, and so we create a program that we can easily enter the numbers in and save it to a file, and then that file we can use to load our into our main program if we were going to do something like that. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple things. One is the console. This is your main way that you're wanting to try to identify issues in your code. Okay, if we display stuff in our console, it's not really displayed in our code here, but it gives us a way that we can kind of track what is going on in different parts of our code. Okay, so there are multiple ways that we can do that, that we can display information to the console. That's what I'm going to be talking about first. And then I'm going to be talking about ways that we can display stuff maybe to the canvas and then quickly use that to be able to maybe place, for right now, being able to place objects, shapes, different shapes on our screen. We can use the helper code to make it easier to help us place our shapes. Okay, so the first thing, let's go to our references and let's look up. Let's see what it will tell us about console.log. We do have console in there. Okay, so console. This is the only method that we have. It says it prints a message to your browser's web console when using P5. You can use print. I would avoid this one because it might actually try to print stuff to a printer and will cause problems. But console.log works just fine. It's open differently depending on which browser you're using. We're using Chrome. Maybe a single string, or maybe one or more objects. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and use it. Okay, so to write something to the console, we write console.log. That's what we just seen. And then we have a set of parentheses. And something needs to be in there. That's what it says. It says that message may be a single string with optional substitution values, which that's what I'm going to show you, or it could be objects, which we're going to learn later on. Okay, so inside here, see if I run this, I don't see anything because there's nothing to be displayed in here. But I could say I am in the setup. Finish it with a semicolon. We go ahead and run. There we go. It's showing me a message. Now, I could copy this entire line. I'm going to highlight it, hit Command C on a Mac or Control C on a Windows or Chromebook. I could paste it here, and now I'm not in the setup. I am in the draw function. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm in the draw. And this will let us see kind of how the flow of the program works. I mentioned before that setup runs once, the draw runs 60 times a second. Look at that. It just keeps going up. It's being called over and over and over. Now, is this doing anything with my program here? Nope. I'm still drawing a rectangle based off my mouse X and mouse Y position. Okay, so this is way number one. Sometimes we only need to just say, hey, I'm here. This is where I'm at in my piece of code, and then I can use that to kind of be like, oh, okay, I understand. And what I mentioned previously, the order of the setup and the draw function doesn't matter for this to run. Now it's not going to change the console until I rerun my code. So it still shows that the setup is running first and then the draw, okay? So that is useful to know. That gives us a little bit of information. Now, let's say I want to know, I want this to actually tally up how many times it's running. Okay, and console.log works really, really good with variables, okay? So let's say I want to know something like how about what is the mouse position? Okay, so instead of saying I'm in the draw, let's put another one. Oops. I'll highlight this again, copy, paste, and we're going to say mouse X. Now if I do mouse X written with parentheses, or excuse me, quotation marks, and I run, that's a piece of text. Okay, but if I want to use the variable, I can't even use a single set of quotes. Single set of quotes is still a piece of text. Okay, but if I want to call, say, a variable, then I need to put it not in any type of quotes. Okay, so showing 0 now as I move this over. See how it's increasing? And I can see where the smallest x is on the canvas, which we should know is 0, and the largest x, which should be the canvas width, which should be set as what we defaulted it to. So if we scroll up, I have 600, and that's what I end up getting. Okay, so this tells me some stuff, but I have to be careful with it, because if I am doing this with only one variable, then I know that this is mouse X. But if I end up having, say, multiple, because I want to know what my mouse X and my mouse Y position is, this, if I do this, this gets confusing. I don't know which one is the X and the Y, especially if I don't have a piece of code like this. So let's comment it out so it doesn't run. Which one's the X, which one's the Y? This makes it a little bit more difficult. Okay, and I don't need to make it difficult. One of the ways that I can do this is I can use concatenation. Concatenation is where I can take text and I can take my variables and I can kind of stick them together, and it lets me have a little bit more information. All right, the easiest way to do that is use a set A quotes. So in, let's say here, what is going on? It gave me 2. In here, I could say X and put a colon and maybe a space. If I run this, though, without actually doing the concatenation, it's going to give me some type of syntax error. Look, it's saying line 22. Okay, that's because when I want to join a piece of text with, say, maybe a variable, something that is going to change, I need to use the plus and kind of link them together. So now if I run this, it's very clear what this value is, and if I move it, it still works how I want. So we can go ahead and do that again for our Y. We can run again. There we go. That makes it a little bit more clear, but we're still taking up 2 lines. Okay, so this is one way. The better way, instead of just using concatenation, is using a string literal. A string literal is I can basically give it the format of what I want it to look like, and then when I run it, I can have it just replace those things in there. Okay, so I want it to give a piece of text, but put the right stuff in there. So I want maybe a format of like this. I want to have, set of parentheses, and I want it to be, like the X, comma, and the Y. That's what I want to do. Okay. Now to do that, anything that you're going to put inside of a string literal is using the backticks. Okay. So let me show what they are. This is a single quote. That's a single quote. Here is a double quote. And here is the backtick. It is found, it's to the left of the 1 key and above the tab key on your keyboard. There's a funny button that has a squiggle, and it has the backtick. This is a backtick. Notice how it does not look the same as a quote. Okay. If you want this to work appropriately, you need to use the backticks. Okay. So I will create this with backticks. Okay. So I write my set of parentheses, I have my X, I have my Y, and I have my closing parentheses. Now if I run this, this is going to want to replace what I have. Now, I need to tell it what to replace in that piece of text, because right now it's just going to run as X and Y, and that's not really what I want. I want it to run where the X and Y are my mouse X and my mouse Y things. So using variables and string literal are written like this: $, squiggle brackets, and then this is the variable. Okay, so that's what I want to write it as. So I'm going to replace this X with the $, a squiggle bracket. I'm going to say mouse X, closing squiggle bracket. For that Y, that's the format that I want. I want that as my mouse Y, $, squiggle brackets, mouse Y. All right, now when I run this, let's go ahead and see what that looks like. It's showing 0, 0, and now this is replacing, and it's looking like what I'm used to for coordinate pairs. Okay, so this right here with the string literal, super useful. This is the way that I prefer to do it because it makes things a lot easier for you to kind of see it. It gives a format. Now you got to be careful about using console.log too much. It'll actually start slowing down your program if you have a million console.logs there. So when you don't need it, you comment them out. When you're trying to check a piece of code, you uncomment them. Okay. When you turn in code that has a lot of console.log, you're still basically in the developmental phase and you get marked down. You need to comment out all of your console.log code before you turn in a program. So that is a good step. Then we go to tidy code. Then we run our code, make sure that nothing shows up in the console, and we're good for turn in. Okay, so now let's do it another way. Let's say that I wanted to display, instead of to the console, okay, I want to display on screen. Display the coordinates on screen. Okay, that's really easy to do, and we already got this step. Let me uncomment that one. Okay, we already got that. We know that it's working. I like it like this. I think it looks better. I want to display it. So there is a function on here, and I'm just going to type text, and I'm going to look for a method on here for doing text. Basically what I want is I want to display text on the screen. And so here is giving me some examples. I'm using the function call of text, that's what this is, and then I'm giving it its requirements. I'm giving the piece of text that I want to display, and then where, my X and my Y. Okay, there's multiple ways that we can do this, but we can affect it with our text align, with our rect mode, the types of fonts, the text size that we want to do. All of this is stuff that we can play around with. Okay. At a minimum, though, we have to have our piece of text, which is called a string for programming, an X and a Y. Okay, so on here, if we were to recreate and say, now if I don't use that quote and I say text, and let's say I want to put it, somewhere right over here on my screen, so I might say like 50-50, 50-50. Go to tidy code to add that semicolon on there. We run. That doesn't really help me. That's saying a function. Let's see if we put it with a single set of quotes. We run. Now it says just text. Now what I really want it to say is I want it to say this. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it. Replace it. Oh, I got a mistake. I made a mistake. Why? Because that's a single set of quotes and not the backtick. There is a difference. Okay, so I want to replace those with the backtick. I only need one in each one. If you don't like it auto completing with another one, that's in here. Auto close brackets and quotes. I have that set as on, knowing that I just want to make sure that I always have pairs. Okay, so now I have backticks. Now if I run this, I have it. I agree, that is hard to see. I have a gray background. So if this is my program, I might use a fill color. Okay, we'll talk about colors more, but if I can want to do black, it's 0. So if I run this, that stays black. It didn't make anything. That's how it defaults to. 255, which is the highest color channel I can have, makes it white. So that makes it a lot easier to see. Okay, this makes it white, and this displays in the screen. Now if I would put this to a higher value, let's say 200, and display, it moves it over. I can also link this with my mouse X, and I can move it over. So it's moving with my mouse X. Okay, so I can use either one of these. Both of these are giving me the information that I want to use, okay, to tell me some information. So let's say that I want to do like the Mickey Mouse logo. Let's look that up. There, we want to do this. Okay, so in order for us to do this, we need to know kind of where we are in our position. So I could, try to use my mouse pointer. So let's take this off. Use my mouse pointer, and that is still telling me my mouse position. Now, what I think might be an easier way with either one of these, let's go back to 50-50. An easier way with either one of these is to start drawing the shape using mouse X and mouse Y. And since I'm displaying mouse X and mouse Y either on the screen or in the console, I can find out what those values are and then replace it. So this is how I would like to do it. So I know that I'm going to be doing a circle. Let's go into the references, make sure that we get the pieces for it. Circle, there's my text. It requires an X, a Y, and a diameter. All right, so let's do circle, and we're going to do mouse X, mouse Y, and let's do 100. Make sure that we're finishing all of our lines with a semicolon. All right, so now I'm at 0, 0. When I run this around, I can pick the spot that I want to be. I take my hand off the mouse. I know exactly what that coordinate is for where my mouse is. And now notice this circle is also positioned from the center of the shape, not the top left like the rectangle. So that's at 235, 98. 235 is my X, 98 is my Y. So now I can go ahead and replace this 235 and 98. 235 and 98. Now I can rerun my code. Now it's locked there. It's not locked to my mouse anymore. I can go ahead and do this again. Let's do another one. Mouse X, mouse Y, and we're also going to have another one that's at 100. I go ahead and run it again. Now I have another one that I'm using. Again, I'm going to move over, try to line it up. Now I can use math and everything to try to find this exactly. I know that I want it to be the exact same distance away from the top edge. So that means that I should be at 98. I'm at 103 right now in terms of my height. Okay, so I can use this to kind of see some things. So if I do 454 and 103, 454, 103, rerun. Okay, that's now locked there. And if I look very closely, it looks like this is actually a little bit lower. But I know that my Y should be the same because I'm lining that up. So I could make that change. There we go. That's lined up. Now we need our last one, which is going to be a much bigger circle. And we're also going to do mouse X, mouse Y. And let's make this one 300 for the size. That looks maybe too big looking at the image. So I'm going to shrink that down. do 200. That looks better. And so then I can take this and I can say, well, how do I make sure that it's kind of looks right on here? Well, I drag it up until I find where it looks good. Look at that spot. See my coordinates. I'm at 344, 199. 344 and 199. That's what I'm replacing. 344, 199. And I have my Mickey Mouse shape. Okay, so this is an easy way that we can use helper code to display on our screen to help us do our projects. And in this case, drawing simple shapes, it makes it easy for me to create these shapes by using my mouse position to do it. All right, good luck, have fun.